Hello, everyone, and welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh my gosh, do we have a great show for you today. Listen, here's the deal. How would you like to be able to assess your business when it comes to 5 critical areas for success and profitability? And when I say assess, I mean an assessment tool, a simple, elegant, but will get you to go, oh, I may need to make some changes here because I'm not making. And what if I told you it didn't matter what size your business was, whether you were a small business or you were a huge corporation, that the same assessment could work all the way across the board? Would that interest you? Okay. Well, let me just ask you this. Let's put this in terms of health for a second, because we do that on the show, right? We're going to go do our evaluations like we do every week, right? We evaluate in the health of 4 areas on a scale of 1 to 10. But do you really understand the health of your business? Or do you maybe struggle with a little bit of Dunning-Kruger effect, where we think we know more than we really do because we aren't exactly the expert, but we think we're the expert, right? This is what this book is about, called Line of Sight. How healthy is your business? This is like a doctor shows up in a book and says, and gets the stethoscope out on your business and puts it to the heart of your business and starts going, that's a little off. That area's a little off. What are we going to do to fix it? Well, I'm going to have the answer for you right here. His name is Robert Corser. He wrote this book, Line of Sight, by the way. It's a fantastic book, really insightful. And he's going to join us here in a couple minutes. And he's going to help us diagnose your business and why you need to diagnose it, areas you need to diagnose, and why those areas are so critical to your business, and that you're probably not diagnosing them the way you think you are. All right. Before we get to him, let's do what we do every week, right? We're 4-part people: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual people. And the fact of the matter is, none of us are static. In fact, if we're not growing, we are dying. That's just the truth. So we evaluate you on a scale of 1 to 10. An assessment, if you will, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, this area is awful, 5 being average, 10 being, man, it just doesn't get any better. I'm really healthy. So let's take the physical area, right? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you evaluate yourself on getting enough exercise, on eating right, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep? All right. Whatever that score is, I don't want you to go, oh my gosh, I am a 2. I am doomed. No. And even in Robert's assessment here, if you got a low score, you're not doomed. You just need to make some changes. That's the point. We just need to make some changes. So if you're 2, what changes can you make? Get your hand out of the bag of the chips. Put away the soda. Whatever it may be. Take a walk. I don't know. Whatever it may be for you, what changes do you need to make? Right? All right. First area. Second area is the mental, intellectual area, right? Well, you know what? If you're sitting on a couch hoping that somehow you're just going to absorb information and that's the way you're going to grow in your knowledge and understanding and wisdom of the world and your world and your business and your knowledge, if you think that's going to happen, that's not the way it works. You can't be a couch potato and expect to learn anything. You got to be an active participant in your learning, right? A great idea is read a book. This is a good one. I would suggest that's going to help you grow intellectually and mentally. But there's other things that you can be doing to take advantage of that. I have my coaching clients, oftentimes they go, I don't like to read. I go, will you listen to a book? And they go, you know what? I'll listen to a book. Listen to a book, but don't just listen to it. Every time you listen to a book, have a little notepad right next to you and write down 3 things that you got out of what you just listened to. Right? And write those 3 things down. I always have my clients write down 3 things. You've been driving in the car. What are 3 things that stand out to you in what you just heard? And then what can you do to apply it? That's learning and intellectual growth. Third area is the emotional area of our life. Folks, real simply, our emotions are broken down into 2 pieces. How well are you able to control your emotions under stress and pressure? And how well are you able to tap into and understand the emotions of another person? Robert's 5th area is, I got this right, Robert. It's human capital, right?
Correct.
Is number 5. You cannot have the platinum rule, which we're going to get to, right? If you do not have empathy towards your people and understand them, you cannot be what leadership is number 2, I think, in that
Yep.
list. And so you cannot be a great leader if you do not have empathy and can control your own emotions. So how would you say you're doing in those 2 areas? And then finally, the 4th area is the spiritual area. And here's the thing about the spiritual area, folks. We all live by faith. Whether you want to believe it or not, we all live by faith. I mean, you woke up this morning, you drank a cup of coffee, you believed it wasn't poisonous, you pushed your button on your car, you believed it was going to turn over, you walked across the crosswalk when it said walk, believing that people weren't going to hit you, you've made plans for the future, believing that those plans are going to happen. We all have those spiritual moments. We all have this thing that we run to, that we believe that in the midst of our chaos will make things better and bring us to centeredness, whether that's God, whether it's nature, whether it's meditation or something else. The question is, okay, great, how's it working for you? Because we connect with each other, not just on a physical, mental, and emotional level. We connect with people spiritually. Our spirits connect to each other. It's something that we can't see, but we know is real. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your spiritual life? All right, those 4 areas are like the air in the tires of your car. If one of the tires is too low, what happens? Right? It's hard to steer the car. What if all 4 tires are low? Well, then you can ruin the car over the course of time if you don't fix it. And speaking of someone who's got all the air in his tires to the right height, his name is Robert Corser. He's a CEO and advisor who has been helping small and medium-sized enterprise scale up for the past 20 years. He's classically trained as a culinary chef. You know how I feel about that. Love that food. Corser knows, he really does know something about delivering excellence in a high pressure environment. In his book, Line of Sight, great book, he draws on stories and anecdotes from his clients to share the simple tools and insights that help free up the growth potential of leaders in their companies. He emphasizes the importance of internal alignment, having resources in the right place and right time, and of self-aware leadership to execute flawlessly. He's an avid outdoorsman, and he lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show. Welcome for the first time, Robert Corser. Welcome to A New Direction.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you. Love the book. Let's dig right into Line of Sight. I have to be honest with you. I was when I was thinking of line of sight, I was thinking alignment, right? And I was thinking, okay, if I take a look at everything I see in my business, is everything I see in my business in alignment? That's kind of how I saw that. Is that an inaccurate thought process on my part?
Well, a little bit, because it's kind of myopic. It's just your vision of it.
Okay. Good. So let's expand on this, because I think when we go to chapter 1, which is called the Founder's Trap, that's a little myopic, correct?
Correct.
All right. So explain people what the Founder's Trap is.
So a founder builds a company to be ran the way they want to run it. Okay. And they reach a natural level where they can't scale anymore because everything's running so flat through them. They are the constraint. And to get past the founder's trap, you have to push down decision-making to another stratum. You need to have trained managers and leaders within the team for flow and dissemination of information. Because when it all flows through that one control point, you reach a limit of scalability. That's why most people sell their companies, because if they could continue to scale it, they would.
And yeah, well, scaling is difficult. I think I see this mostly. I work with a lot of small businesses where scaling in a small business is one of the most difficult challenges that they have. Is that typically what you see in the micro small businesses as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And even in small to mid cap too.
Mm-hmm. And do you think it's these 5 areas that are inhibiting them, these businesses that we're about to talk about here? The balance metrics, leadership. Do you think it's those 5 areas?
Yeah, there's a lot of science that went into the 5 keys to execution, and those are where the biggest gaps arise in most of the clients that we've worked with.
Okay. Chapter 2, just we'll kind of give people kind of a little brief of this, is purpose and alignment, the line of sight approach. This is where I think we hear a lot about purpose and alignment, but this is where your approach takes a little bit different, I think a little bit different angle. So help people understand, talking about purpose and alignment, the line of sight approach, and how it may be a little bit different for people to think about.
Sure. Well, I mean, purpose based on stratum. I mean, the executives, the managers, the employees, it's synonymous and different. When an employee understands what the overall strategy is and how they contribute to it, they feel this greater sense of purpose. You actually capture more of their discretionary mind share. They're willing to go kind of above and beyond that minimum threshold. And the first key, strategic understanding, that's what this is all about. It's, do I understand the strategy? Does my team understand the strategy? And how do we differentiate ourselves from our competitors? And how do I contribute to that execution? Like, that's really usually the biggest gap, is no one knows that. And then so you have a deflated sense of purpose.
Right.
There's a direct correlation to alignment and engagement. The greater aligned the organization is, the deeper the engagement has with their people.
So when we say alignment here, as we define alignment, are we saying that all these 5 areas need to be aligned, or how are we looking at alignment? Are we looking at all of it? Like, our culture's got to be in aligned with our strategy and whatever our market discipline is. Is that what we're talking about when you say our alignment? Okay, I want to make sure that people are clear, because I've had a lot of authors on the show, and everybody kind of has a little bit different twist on what employee engagement is and what alignment is, right? And I will get people who will say, well, if your culture's aligned, well, that's all you need, right? The Peter Drucker, thought process, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So as long as your culture's all good, you're in alignment, right? And so I want to make sure people are really clear on what they understand, what this is. You're going to spend some time here talking about valuing employees. And we've had recently, just coincidentally, a lot of authors come on this show talking about, what? We need to wake up to value probably our most precious commodity that we have in our business. Speak to valuing employees in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world.
So here's how I kind of look at it. We have these desired outcomes, things we're trying to achieve, and then we create this strategy to create advantage to achieve those outcomes. Everything in between those is the people. So, I mean, treating the people the way they need to be treated, making sure they understand how they contribute, that they know the strategy at every stratum of the organization, from the C-suite to the executives, the managers, the employees, super important. It's our charge as leaders and managers to ensure that they know how they contribute to that.
Okay. I'm going to move down this chapter a little bit, because you make a statement here. You say the line of sight employs the unique approach called confidence-based marketing. Is it market? Is that correct? Marketing, right? Confidence-based marketing. Sorry, CBM. And the CBM approach measures both accuracy and confidence through a single 4-point scale. So help us understand this CBM, this confidence-based marketing, so that because this is critical to this assessment that we can use. By the way, you give us examples of in your book that we can use. Help us understand that piece of it, though, the confidence-based marketing.
So it's part of the assessment methodology that we went through. And what it is, do I agree the statement is accurate? And then how confident am I that it's true?
Okay.
If I have high confidence that it's true and high confidence that's accurate, you get alignment. Okay, that's where you get superlative execution, you get engaged talent, a culture of, commitment. If I'm confident that this is inaccurate, misaligned, okay, and that's where you lose, weak culture, you lose market power, you get poor execution, you get kind of confused talent.
Got it. In chapter 3, and I think chapter 3 is kind of just a foundational chapter that everybody kind of needs to get on board with. It's called mission, vision, strategic intent, and market discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like what you were doing here is you were kind of like going, okay, I've got some questions for you that you should know. Hopefully you know. Hopefully you can answer. But you're not taking it for granted that everybody has these answers, is what I'm gathering. Because you start off, literally, you start off the chapter with why do customers buy from you versus the competition? Is this for your operational excellence? Is this for your innovation? Is this for your ability to customize? What is your unique value proposition? Your unique value chain? Is the intention here for us to get really, really clear on our mission, vision, and strategic intent? Is that the
Yeah.
object?
Yeah,
Or
because where there's
or
muck, there's money. I mean, if it's fuzzy or kludgy on mission, vision, strategic intent, the why, the what, and the how,
Mhm,
like doesn't matter what else we do, it's going to be murky.
mhm. And and let's dig into this just a little bit, because I think these three areas: operational excellence, innovation, and ability to customize. It's like comes right on Michael Porter's book, Competitive Advantage, which I have sitting on my shelf here. Is what it feels like it comes right out of.
Well,
Is that right?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Because I was like going, God, I'm pretty sure this came out of Competitive Advantage, but I'm like going, but it's really good because we don't think about what it is that we do here, right? And then you give us some examples, Southwest, Apple, and Disney, right,
hmm
as some examples of those things. And then you move into vision. How often in what you do you see a company whose vision is either murky or doesn't exist?
very often. I mean, a lot of times a company they'll spend a weekend or they'll spend 2 days on an offsite. They'll build a mission, they'll print it, they'll put it on the wall, and they never look at it again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, the mission is the why. Why do we exist? The
Right.
vision is what? Like, what do we want to be? It's that 3 to 5 to 10 year look into the future of what do we want to be when we grow up.
And and how does a company survive without a clarity of vision? How do they do that, in your opinion?
Tenacity.
Mm.
What I see happens is they'll have some gains and then they have attrition. So top line will go up and then it drops back down, and this keeps reverberating over and over again until they get frustrated. And they're like, I don't understand why we can't capture more market power, why we have this attrition, why this product division falls, and it's just they don't know what's happening, and that's kind of like what we go in to diagnose.
Yeah, and we're gonna be moving into this. You have in this book, by the way, line of sight, which, by the way, just for everybody to see. Um, by the way, let me give you the secondary title, listeners and viewers on DVTV, watching us on TV. Thank you, and watching us live all over. The secondary title is "The 5 Keys for Strategic Execution in an Age of Uncertainty." Uh, I- and I just want to re-emphasize in this book that one of the things that Robert does, along with um, Olivier Arias.
Olivier Aries, yes.
Okay. Uh, what they do is they have this one more thing occasionally in the back of these chapters, where it talks about like either an extra example or some things to consider or take a deeper dive into. And, one of the things that you did in the end of chapter 3 is there's 3 good practices that should consider implementing to stay better attuned to customer demand, especially as um, uncertain economic environment makes customers' behavior difficult to predict. Make your strategy clear across the organization. Let your customers know they're valued, and overinvest in human capital. And I thought it was really interesting. And what you've done here has been great. But I would like you to talk about, you've already mentioned it briefly, making your strategy clear across the organization, that everybody knows it. It seems to me that one piece, letting your customers know they're valued. I think companies think they're doing a good job. Probably, maybe not. I think people invest in their capital. I don't think they over invest in their capital, human capital. But making the strategy clear across the organization seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, to be a piece where sometimes the gatekeepers in the C-suite hold the strategy and the rest of the organization doesn't know. Am I inaccurate on that?
You're not.
Why do you think that is?
The gap in the belief that all employees on all stratums need to know.
Mm. And yet you make a big case that if everybody knows the strategy, actually, I'll go the other way. If you don't know the strategy, if everybody in your business doesn't know the strategy, how can you be in alignment? That's my question.
It's very difficult, and especially when it's not disseminated, we don't see alignment.
Right. Right.
It's one of those things. I mean, the relentless of strategy, the mission, the vision, the strategic intent. I mean, town halls, starting meetings with strategic intent. When we hold internal meeting, the first line, we review our strategic intent with everyone that's on the call.
Mm. Mm. So that everybody knows, and everybody automatically is on the same page.
Mhm.
And then you give them
When you look at strategic intent individually, it's the top line strategy that all other functional strategies support.
I get it. I get it. It's really good. But by the way, it's really good stuff. We're about to go into the five pieces here that the assessment is the five keys for strategic execution. We're about to get into those. The book is entitled Line of Sight. I'm with the author, Robert Corser. Fantastic. You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Hey, folks, whether you're recovering from an injury, surgery, suffering everyday aches and pains, having difficulty performing activities of daily living, maybe you're unable to perform athletic activities, so you're a professional athlete, you just want to move and feel better. The elite team at Epic Physical Therapy will create a tailored treatment plan just for you. So when you're ready for your epic relief, epic recovery, epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors, for more than 39 years, they've been helping people transition in life. What do you mean transition in life? Well, think about it. Every place you've ever lived has been a life transition. They know how to take the stress out of the buying and selling portion of that life transition. So when you're ready to sell your home or buy your first home or your next home, start with the stressless team at Linda Craft Team Realtors. That's lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Robert Corser and his book, Line of Sight, digging in the five keys for strategic execution in an age of uncertainty. Robert, we're going to dig in here. There's a few things I want to get right. The first key here is strategic execution is key one.
Understanding.
I'm sorry?
Strategic understanding.
Oh, I'm sorry. Strategic understanding. Do I have it down wrong? The first key, strategic execution. I don't know why I have that. Or strategic. Maybe I just misspelled it. Maybe I just was typing so fast. You say 30% of organizations rank poorly on strategic understanding. Sorry, I was thinking execution and I wrote down. I didn't write it down right. 30% of organizations rank poorly on strategic understanding, which means their employees have a poor understanding of the company goals. Other studies have found that up to 95% of employees are unaware or don't understand the employee's strategic intent. Why? Why are we seeing these kind of numbers?
Because it's the best kept secret of the executive team. A lot of times, I mean, they'll talk about it. I mean, it's just that communication, the belief that they need to disseminate it through the organization, through all stratums, through the executives, the managers, the employees. It's just, there's a gap there. They don't think it's important. And this is the strongest statistical correlation of all the five keys to strategic execution, is strategic understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have gaps there, when we see gaps there when we work with clients, it proliferates all the other five keys. If someone's really aligned on strategic understanding, that natural, it kind of falls into a line with the other four.
So there's kind of a method to the. I hate using this term, but there's a method to the madness in terms of that. This one, it starts here.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start with leadership. You're not starting with your people. You're not starting with the metrics. You're starting here, because everything falls out from under here. Is that
correct?
Okay. All right. Now, there's a couple things that you say though here in that I found intriguing, because as a psychological professional, you talk about the Hawthorne effect and the importance of noticing your employees' efforts in executing your strategy. I think this is something we say quite frequently, but we don't do very often. Is that what you've typically found in your research and in doing and working with these companies?
Yeah. We hear, oh, we should do that. And then they don't.
What is the disconnect, man? What's the disconnect for that?
We're still, it's so many different reasons.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to me that we know that we should do it. We don't do it. Right. And
It's a knowing doing gap.
yeah. 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 You do you had in the one more thing in this chapter, you called the fastest way to destroy value. And you say the single biggest factor to determining whether the strategy will be successful is obvious. The entire company must be aware of the strategy. And you said there's research that revealed that 95% of a company's employees were unaware of it or didn't understand the strategy. What's
Correct.
the antidote? What's the anecdote? What's the
Tell
antidote?
I mean, the relentless communication of it. I mean, doing quarterly town halls, telling them what it is. I mean, having managers talk about it in their meetings. I mean, having shift supervisors talk about it during their huddles. I mean, I think science says someone needs to hear something or see something 17 times before it sinks in. How often do we disseminate information through the organization 17 times?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't. I think for even when I coach, business suite professionals, I get the pushback of why do I have to tell them a second time when I've already told them once? Right?
Mhm.
It's just the way it is. It's just communication. You have to
Mhm.
tell them and tell them. I mean, Robert, you've spoken in front of many groups before. The old adage, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And then maybe it sinks in. That's only 3, right?
Yeah.
Typically, we think 7, is the magic number, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, you just have to do it. I just thought the what you did here with one more thing, the fastest way to destroy value, was really, really important, and I love what you do. So let's dig into this. Let's say you have a strategic understanding, and you have a score. The score could be in the strategic understanding. I think the score was what from. I can't remember what the bottom and the top end is, but 24 was the magic number. If your score was below 24, let's talk about that health score in this
Mhm.
area is below 24. You talk about developing a strategy. So help us understand what that strategy is if we've got a low score in this area.
So, once we get that kind of that baseline read of where you're at as an individual reader or the company is, then we can kind of take corrective action. So, I mean, if we score below that threshold, it's an opportunity for us to communicate better. So, taking a look inward of do we actually have a strategy? A lot of times when I talk to a company, it's like, well, our strategy is to grow. And that's really more of a desired outcome than a strategy. So it's like, then you got to kind of like, okay, well, maybe we need to spend some time working on what's our desired outcome, what are our goals, what are we trying to achieve, and then build that strategy. And then once we have that, then we can disseminate it and discuss it throughout the organization.
And you talk about here that what was some of the things we just heard say, communicate the strategy, be a role model for the strategy, use your executives and managers as relays. And then I love this because General John Gronsky was on the show talking about iron sharpened leadership. He talks about this, he calls it muddy boots leadership, but you talk about it, management by walking around. Talk about that a little bit.
I, just seeing management leaders and executives on the floor walking around, I mean, changes things. I mean, people have a hard time, following an absentee general. So I mean, depending on how we're wired, I mean, we might be able to read the floor as we're walking around. I mean, just good presence, um, you know, if if you're an intuitive person, you could probably feel if you walk into a department or division and things aren't going great.
Yeah, and I think that what happens is that uh, we get a little lazy at times,
Mhm.
right? and we just kind of let things go. And then all of a sudden we walk around when things go bad versus being consistent about that practice in that. And because it's got to be a habit, because I think the more that people see you around, I think there's a contribution to psychological safety that they matter.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think there is. Chapter 6, second key, leadership. Interesting quote. And because you start off with a question again, what makes a great leader? And you say, for you, it's what makes a great leader?
Someone that is giving the people what they need, and is, communicating relentlessly.
Mm. Mm-hmm. You talk about there's three main requirements: credibility, communication, and change management.
Sure.
Let's talk about those three things and the importance to being a great leader, and if credibility, communication, and change management, the 3 C's.
Sure. So, I mean, is the leadership team credible to lead the execution of strategy? Do they always say what they're going to do? In most organizations, it's always shadow the leader. So, I mean, if you're not getting a congruent message out of that leadership team of this is what we do, you're going to start kind of plays telephone as it goes down through the organization. And change management is one of the biggest beefs I have with kind of like most companies that I work with. And it's like, here's where it is. You get a bunch of executives, they're in a room, they're going back and forth, they're fighting, they're figuring out where they want to go, then they align. And say that took 2 months. After that alignment, they expect that workforce to change in less than a week when it took them months to kind of come up with it. And it always comes back to communication. I mean, the more time you give them, a day is better than an hour, a week is better than a day, and the why behind it, your workforce will implement that change.
Mm. And we're uncomfortable with change. You make a point of that in this book, right? It's being able to mitigate that, right? Yeah. That resistance on some level, right? You give us again a health index. We can you on your in this assessment that you have, basically assess 3 areas, and if you get a score below 15, that's kind of our score where we start going south. What do we do if we do have a low score in this area of leadership? What should we do?
So kind of take a step back and have a hard look at how we've behaved as a leader or a leadership team in the last, 30, 60, 90, 360 days. Putting together timelines, practicing good change management practices, and then doing what we say we're going to do, even if it's unpopular. Even we have to say, hey, I can't tell you that, but this is what we're going to do. Like being upfront with that and always having that kind of congruent message coming from the leadership team.
And all of this just, it's hard to escape the communication piece in any one of these 5 areas, isn't it?
100%.
I mean, it's
all about communication.
Yeah. It just seems that it's just so critical that we always be communicating. And I think there's a transparency piece here. Do I have that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, the more transparent, the better. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, there are things that sometimes we can't be transparent about at that time. But I mean, the more transparency, the more trust is built with that leadership team.
And you talk about use the trust equation to build trust and credibility. When you say trust equation, what are we saying there?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think, building intimacy, don't make it about yourself, be a reliable leader,
right.
Maintain and expand your technical proficiency.
Okay. Yes. I mean, here's the biggest gap that I find with most leaders is, 95% of the population believe that they're self-aware. Okay. Because they have a basic understanding of their needs, behaviors, and drives. But that's only half of it. The other half is how do your needs, behaviors, and drives interact and impact on others? And Bruce Lee said it the best. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person.
Right.
And if we don't have true self-awareness, it's very difficult to have empathy, to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and then it's very difficult to lead. It's easier to manage holding people accountable to day-to-day activities, but to actually lead somebody, like, you have to have empathy.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's critical. You're talking about that. The research that you're quoting is Dr. Tasha Urich, who did the
Mhm.
research on awareness. And when she did that research, she ended up discovering that the reality is on our best day we're maybe 15% aware.
Mhm.
We're just really not all that aware as we go along. And as we get busier in our day, and I think this is the point that you make with leaders is that leaders are often busy, they become less and less self-aware as well as being aware of what's really going on in their business,
Mhm.
right? Especially with their
And
people.
and you mentioned earlier, I mean, the more pressure and stress we are, the more we revert back to our natural self. We
Yes.
behave different than we're wired all day long every single day, but under times of pressure and stress and
Mm,
uncertainty, we immediately go back to who we are. And then we start losing that empathy, we start losing that self-awareness.
mm. That's really good. That's really, really good. Let's dig into the third key:
Mhm.
balanced metrics. Um, Metrics that matter is a sub headline underneath all this. Do we overmeasure stuff?
We do. Just because you can measure it doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean you should. I mean, here's kind of the default and decision gate I look through when we're measuring something. Is it going to drive the behavior we're trying to achieve?
Mhm.
If that's yes, then let's measure it. What ends up happening is some of the things are hard to measure. So we measure the things that are easy. We measure a lot because we can, and it's just doesn't do anything.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, do I have 92 KPIs that I need to be focusing on, or do I have, 10?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's the problem here is I don't remember where KPIs came from because I remember a time where we didn't even talk about KPIs.
Mhm.
I'm old enough to remember that where those three letters didn't even exist, right? And we didn't talk about them. We literally did use probably more so than others lagging indicators,
Yeah.
right? With a few leading indicators of our business, right? But
Yeah.
now we've got all these KPIs that exist and we're measuring seven, listen, I've got basically a graduate minor in statistics. I can measure anything with about 40 different statistical packages if you want.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure the benefit of any of that. And I think that's the problem in business is that we're spending so much time looking at the numbers, we're probably missing the point of the people.
Yeah. The goal of that, I mean, when you look at, balanced metrics, it's all about, does it drive the behavior you're trying to achieve?
Mhm, mhm.
And financial metrics different, and stuff like that. I mean, they can be used as leading and lagging indicators, but I mean, are we measuring the right stuff? And just because we can measure it doesn't mean that we should.
Right, right. You talk about begin with the end in sight, which I think is what you're talking about, right? Is what are the behavior I want to measure, right?
Mhm.
And am I really measuring that behavior, right? Um,
Mhm.
One of the things that you say here is the rule of thumb is to ask yourself what you intend to learn by measuring whatever you want to measure,
Mhm.
right? I don't know that we asked ourselves that question. What is it that I
Right.
intend to learn here?
Well, and that's the decision gate. It's like, what do I intend to learn? And if I learn it, am I going to do something different? That's the
Right.
qualifier for me to continue to measure it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Because
getting my mind past, let's not just measure to measure.
right. Which is often, well, we've created jobs, haven't we,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Robert? Just to give us statistics and
Mhm.
metrics and measurements. I don't even know that we understand 90% of them, but we've hired literally teams of people to go measure this. And I'm not even sure we know what we're measuring,
So true.
right? Um, Too much measurement or too little analysis? It's the headline you have there. Just because something quantifiable doesn't mean it needs measured. Metrics must be meaningful to shape your organization's behavior. Focus on what matters most. And the most important questions are, and here's what you say: are your metrics meaningful and balanced between leading and lagging indicators? Are you conducting thoughtful analysis of the numbers? Will the data yield information that simplifies the executive's job? That's an interesting one.
Mhm.
How often, I don't know that I've seen data yield information that is simplifying the executive job. Help us understand that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the numbers can be daunting. So, I mean, having them distilled down and put into a dashboard I'll give you an example. I was with a client 3 weeks ago and we modeled one of their meetings. I was kind of taking them through 5 dysfunctions of a team. And their first 25 minutes was they threw up a spreadsheet and then each person would talk about their functional area and their numbers. And I paused them about 3/4 of the way through and I was like, Jeff, do you know what that means? And he didn't. And it was just like they were going through the motions. They were just letting each of the functions talk about, what they're measuring. They didn't know why they were measuring it, what it meant. Like it was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you're giving those numbers and you'd have no idea what those mean, I mean, that says something. Real quickly, OKRs, objective key results. Help people understand that.
So OKRs, I mean, are more, I don't want to say they're more tangible, but I mean, it's more bottom line driven, results driven versus, I mean, it's kind of away from leading and lagging. And it's about, are we achieving the things to help us achieve the desired outcome?
Got it. Good. His name is Robert Corser. The book is entitled Line of Sight. Boy, we are digging into some deep stuff here, aren't we, folks? You know what? You're listening to him here on A New Direction. Folks, Epic Physical Therapy. My physical therapists, I think they should be yours too. They offer the most advanced top-of-the-line equipment, including the Ultra G anti-gravity treadmill, the Normatec compression sleeves, my favorite, game-ready ice and compression all-in-one. That's just a few. They're trained and certified, most comprehensive, cutting-edge treatments available, including blood flow restriction therapy, dry needling, cupping, and that's just a few. When you're ready for your epic relief, epic recovery, epic results, don't look any further. Go to epicpt.com. That's EPICPT.com. And Linda Craft Team Realtors for more than 39 years. They have been known as the legends of customer service. And if you are a real estate professional in the greater Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, that's the Research Triangle Park, they are looking to hire somebody like you, a real estate professional. So if you're looking for a team, place to hang your license, don't look any further. Go to Linda Craft Team Realtors, lindacraft.com, LINDACRAFT.com. And we're back here on A New Direction with Robert Corser, digging into the book Line of Sight. Hopefully you're enjoying this, Robert. I'm loving getting your insights on a deeper level, and it appears that the listeners and viewers are doing the same thing right now as they're chiming in. So thank you for giving us some more in-depth insights into Line of Sight. I'm going to move. What's that?
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Chapter 8, the fourth key, activities of employees and structure of your own organization. And I should point out it's activities and structure, but he has activities in parentheses then of employees and structure of your organization. And you have strategy before structure.
Mm-hmm.
Help us understand where you're getting at there. You have some general principles: keep it simple, growth plan, relevance, exclusive focus. Help us understand strategy before structure.
The strategy will dictate the structure that you need to achieve your desired outcome.
Okay.
So, I mean, as simple as that. Just, I mean, a lot of times they're like, I need to focus on the structure. I need to focus on the org chart before we even talk about strategy. And it's like, it's so backwards. It's like your strategy will tell you where you need human capital and the structures in place to execute to achieve your goals.
So when do we consider culture part of the strategy?
Yeah.
In this instance, can we say that?
Yep.
So then that means we got to be really clearly defined in a lot of in strategy. Then we need to be really clearly defined here.
Mhm.
Because if we're saying strategy before structure, and I can understand why people would say structure. I can't understand it, but I do value your side of it because I think you're right in that if you don't know what your culture is and you don't know what your strategy is, you can build the greatest structure in the world, but you have no foundation for it to sit on. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Do you think that's fairly accurate?
Yes. Took the words out of my mouth. Love it.
I don't know if I did that, Robert, but I appreciate you saying that. You have an assessment uh, here, and our magic score is 17 or below. And so if we have a low, if we've got a low score in this area of activities and structure,
Mhm.
um, what are we going to do to fix it? You talked first about align the structure with market discipline. Help us understand what you mean when you say aligning the structure with market discipline.
So, market discipline, there's three main go to market strategies: there's product and service innovation, there's customer intimacy, and there's operational excellence. Now, there'll be one main go to market strategy, for a company. Now, when you look at different functional areas and stuff like that, like, I mean, there's going to be things that are going to be about operational excellence, innovation, intimacy, that kind of thing. But when it comes to activities and structure, I mean, does strategy prioritize day-to-day activity for all employees? That's the huge pull right there. So I mean, if there's a gap in strategic understanding and they don't know what the strategy is, it can't prioritize day-to-day work for all employees. So this is the second strongest correlation of the five keys. Number one is strategic understanding. Number two is activities and structure. So getting this right, getting alignment around this, making sure that strategy prioritizes day-to-day work for all employees, super duper important.
Uh, well, matter of fact, you say determine key activities, and you say, and maybe you can expand on these if you want. Consider the end-to-end process required to deliver the activities. Meaning,
Mhm. Just taking more of a holistic view versus kind of like chopping it up. It's like
yeah,
this is deliverable. Like this is what it takes from start to finish.
got it. Eliminate activities and tasks that do not contribute to strategic outcomes. You have examples of that by chance?
Um, sure. I mean, say like strategy pivoted, and we had some people that were kind of anchoring and like, well, this is how we always did it. This is how
Mm,
it's always been done.
got it.
You know, the courage to kind of cut that off and be like, well, we're not going to do this anymore because this no longer contributes to our unique value prop, delighting our customers, getting our product and services to market.
And then the third piece you had was assess which part of the organization should be accountable for each of the activities and processes.
Yeah, important clarity.
Mm, got it. And then as part of building ourselves back up, evaluate and design the organization with outcomes in mind. Um, and this is where you talk about sharing the strategic objectives, shielding employees from interference that may disrupt their focus on key activities, shared leading and lagging indicators. Sounds to me like I think we're talking about here is that if we're evaluating and designing the organization with outcomes in mind, that it's is it about is it about better systems, or is it about being more efficient, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. And that's the whole lens on how I view every company that I work with. It's like, what is the outcome? What is the desired outcome? What is the goal? What are we trying to achieve? And then work back from there.
Okay. All right. Fifth key, people, human capital.
Mhm.
You come right out and you say your employees are a precious resource that should be treated like platinum. I kind of teased the platinum rule, right? We all kind of know the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do to you. What's the platinum rule?
So the platinum rule is treat people the way they need to be treated.
Mm,
Um, even distilled down even more, the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. That's like me saying to a team of 10 people, it's like, hey, I'm going to give you guys all the same size pair of shoes and we're going to go for a jog. Some people, it's going to be perfect. Some people can't even get into them. You know, when we put our hand up and said, I want to be accountable for someone else's results, it's our responsibility as leaders, managers, supervisors to tailor our approach the way that they're wired. You know, as humans, if we need something, we have a natural tendency to give what we need. If we don't need it, we have a tendency not to give it. All of our people are wired differently. We all need different things. And I'm not talking a huge lift. I'm talking 1, 2, 3 minutes before you meet with them on a one-to-one or a huddle, kind of tailoring your approach the way they're wired. If you do that for 30, 60, 90 days, they'll walk through a brick wall for you. They'll be like, this is the best boss ever. I'm being led exactly how I need to be led. The platinum rule, if you take nothing away, take that. It'll pay off in spades.
Yeah. Treat your employees the way they want to be treated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. You have a subtitle here that I found that I highlighted. The right person in the right role at the right time doing the right thing right. That's a lot of rights. The right person in the right role at the right time doing the right thing right. What are we trying to get at here?
Well, I mean, using something to have a person that has to behave any differently that comes natural to them, where they kind of get to go to work. All of their mental stamina goes to the task at hand. They're being led by the platinum rule. They're in the right role, and there's crystal clear clarity of expectations, and they'll kill it.
So then this comes down to onboarding. When you bring people up. So you say starting off on the right foot, onboarding. What are some onboarding things that maybe we're not doing that we should, or some things that we just should be doing, period? Onboarding.
Period. Use psychometrics. Use behavioral assessing to get the right people, to put them in the right roles. There's over 800 psychometrics out there. My firm believes in the predictive index. Been PI partners for a long time. Just that. I mean, right people, right role. And then, being clear about what their expectations are, who's going to be holding them accountable, the reporting structure looks like. I mean, all the clarity they need to be succeeded. And then, the onboarding, mission, vision, strategic intent. Every new hire should be taught that.
Right. Right. And I think that's something that's missing on the onboarding process, at least I see pretty frequently in businesses, is that they don't communicate the mission, vision, and strategic intent immediately. I mean, like, it's not ingrained. The culture's not ingrained, right? They're teaching them the how-tos, but they're not teaching them the why we do what we do, right? From a
Now,
cultural
it's a mitigation strategy for human capital recently, because, millennials and Gen Zs are coming into the workplace. They're more purpose-driven. So I'm actually seeing clients and customers that are actually putting their purpose in job ads. Why do they exist? I mean, do they do triple bottom? I mean, do they give back to organizations? And they're attracting more candidates because of that.
I am seeing this as well as a business owner, where the younger generations, Gen Z in particular, really want to know, who are you? What charities do you work with? What not only what is your purpose, but how can your purpose include me, and what is my purpose in this? That makes a difference. That's a big deal to these younger people that are coming into the workforce. It's a huge deal. You have a couple general prescriptions. You talked about them. Use behavior analytics. That's a great start, is what you say. Invest in your employees. Platinum rule versus Goldman. We've gone through these 5 things. So now that we've kind of got an idea of determining our health index, if you will, what do we do evaluating our execution from there?
So one of the lenses that I wrote this book through was just by reading this book and taking a look and, doing some of the general prescriptions for each of the 5 KSEs, the reader's going to get lift. Okay. Now, remember, the self-assessment in there is a one-person myopic view. Engaging with our partner network, our implementers, and actually delivering this through the organization and getting a real live snapshot on where your current status is, that would be the next step. And then we can take corrective action on each of those areas where there's misalignment.
All right. We've got people who are chomping at the bit, wanting to go, okay, you know what, Robert, you've convinced me. I probably need to hire you. So where do they start to find you and get you? And because I mean, you've done a great job on the show, so thank you for doing it. But
Thank you.
now it's time for you to sell you, and if people want to get a hold of you, and if they want to get a hold of this assessment, and they want to go through this because they recognize that their business needs a health checkup and they need a doctor's visit, what do they do? How do they get a hold of you?
Look at our website, reach out to lineofsight.com. Connect with us. We have certified partners, implementers across the country. We're expanding that network, and we'll follow up with you, and we'd love to work with you and help you guys execute better.
Awesome. Robert, stay with me. Folks, it's the show. You know what I say to you every week? You know what? You're in control of three things: your attitude, your effort, and your resiliency. I know life can be tough. Circumstances can fly at you in a hurry, right? We live in a VUCA world. I would just say this: you know what? It's your attitude. You have control of that. It's your effort. That's tied to your excellence. How excellent do you want to be today? And yeah, we all get punched in the gut or knocked in the teeth. It's up to you to get back up again. Take control of that, because that is in your control. I'll be back next week with another great guest. It's going to be another great book, and it's going to be automatically another great show. You had a lot of choices. You chose us. Thank you. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Wherever you listen to this show by podcast, you know what? Give us a positive review. If you're watching us on DBTV, I can't thank you enough. Let them know that you love the show. And as I say to you all over the world, you know what that is. Ciao, everybody.